Hey, what is up guys, I'm KBHD here, and they said this year, 2014, would be the year of the wearable. 2014 is said to be the year of wearable tech, electronics that are physically attached to your body. So, was it? At the beginning of 2014, about 10 months ago, we looked at the 5 best wearables that you can buy. And these are all first generation products, so they're the beginning of a new product category. And they could all sort of tell you if you have a new notification. They could tell you if something new is happening. But if you actually wanted to do anything about it, or if you wanted to take action, or if you wanted to reply to something like a new message, then you still had to take your phone out of your pocket anyway. So that's, I guess, the main difference between what we had then and what we have now. At Google I/O this summer, we saw the introduction of Android Wear. So it's Google's version of their Android operating system for wearable tech, or smartwatches specifically. It's not sexy or anything, but it's very smart, and it's actually gotten a couple of software updates since it first rolled out, and it has a bunch of new features now, and it's a lot better looking, and wearable tech has made a lot of steps forward since that introduction. So now here we are at the end of 2014 with a very different, very new list. These are your new top 5 best wearables that you can buy right now. Number 5 is the Samsung Gear S. So this is a Tizen smartwatch, and we've talked a lot about Tizen in the past and what it means to Android, but essentially the Gear S is this huge curved AMOLED display on a smartwatch. It's not small at all, it's not subtle at all, it's this really big thing, but it's one of the more innovative designs and one of the more interesting looking things we've seen this year in the smartwatch game. And it actually turns out to be a really good product, mostly because it's one of the few that actually doesn't require being tethered to or attached to a smartphone to work. It has its own independent functions, it has its own independent actions it can do. It has a freaking web browser built in, so if you want to load up a web page, it'll start chugging that Snapdragon 400 and half a gig of RAM, and it'll load up a web page. So if you need to do some things on the go, this is actually a pretty solid option, and like I said, it's not small, it's not subtle, but it's pretty interesting looking. Samsung, by the way, has loaded the market with a bunch of other smartwatch options, and they're basically saturating the market in typical Samsung fashion. One of the other noteworthy ones is the Samsung Gear Live, which is their Android Wear version of a smartwatch. Pretty traditional looking smartwatch as far as they are concerned. And they have the Gear 2 as well, which is this sort of a follow-up to their Tizen-based Galaxy Gear. Number 4 is the Pebble, and this is actually one of the returners from the video that happened at the beginning of this year, 10 months ago, which means it's still really good at what it does because it's very focused on just delivering your notifications, and it's still really good at that. Now, it's also not going to let you take action really on these notifications the way the Android Wear smartwatches do. So if you get a new message, you can mark it as read or ignore it, but that's about it. You still have to take your phone out of your pocket to reply. But it still has a display that allows it to have a 7-day battery life. It's not the most premium feeling in the world, but they also now have a version called the Pebble Steel that's a bit more expensive, but I would recommend it because it's much more premium feeling, has the metal band, has the clasp that feels much more like a normal timepiece than the rubber and plastic of the original Pebble. So the Pebble and the Pebble Steel are still very easy to recommend for the simple delivery of notifications. Number 3 is the Asus ZenWatch. Now, there's nothing wrong with the square display on your wrist. It does look a little bit unconventional. It doesn't look quite as much like a normal watch. But I think the one that strikes the balance best is the ZenWatch. It's probably easily the best looking smartwatch that has a full square resolution display. It has that brushed aluminum around the sides, it has that subtle curve around the edges, it has the leather band, it has that clasp like a normal timepiece, so it's very nice at striking the balance between something that looks like a timepiece but also gives you that sort of a high-tech look in the full square display. I wouldn't necessarily pick it over the number 1 and number 2, but I do want to put it high on this list because it's worth recommending. It's a great performer, it has a solid battery life, it's got nice specs, it's pretty solid, and I wouldn't have any trouble recommending it to someone who's looking to get into a smartwatch right now. Number 2 is the LG G Watch R, and this is an Android Wear smartwatch similar to ones we've talked about before, but it looks a lot more like a normal timepiece because it has a round display, and it actually has the notches around the display and the numbers as well. It has a leatherish band that's not really that premium feeling, and there is no metal version, but it still looks a lot closer to a normal watch than the sort of a mini computer that the square ones look like on your wrist. There also is a square version of this. It's called the LG G Watch, no R, and it was introduced at Google I/O, and that was one of the first that LG introduced. But the G Watch R for round is much better looking, I think, and is easily something I could recommend. But the number 1, I think, is the one that you guys probably all saw coming. Number 1 is the Moto 360. The Moto 360 is a round smartwatch, and it's also running Android Wear, And it has a metal version too, so if you prefer that premium look and feel closer to a normal watch, it has the clasps, it has everything like that, you have that option. And I think it's one of the best looking smartwatches, actually it might be the best looking smartwatch period, with the minimal distractions around the display and the almost zero bezel. Has that chamfer edge around the display. It has that tiny little bar at the bottom that people like to complain about at first, but you'll find that it just sort of melts away and disappears from your vision when you're checking stuff after about a day or two. So it's a beautiful option for a smartwatch. This is the one on the list that I did do a full review on, so if you're looking to get into smartwatches in general, or you just want to know more about what the best of a smartwatch right now can offer, check out that link right below the like button. It'll have the Moto 360 review, and I'll also link my Android Wear review to go over all the functions of what a smartwatch can do. So honestly, if you're trying to buy a smartwatch, especially since it's the holiday season now, it's basically a toss-up between like the top 3 or 4, depending on what sort of a design you like and what functionality you want, the clasp design, the material design. Also, there's a Sony option, the Sony Smartwatch 3, and there's also those Samsung options that I talked about as they start to flood the market. So really, there are a lot more options than you had at the beginning of the year. Also, the Apple Watch, not the iWatch, the Apple Watch was announced this year, but it doesn't sell until next year, and there are still a whole bunch of questions that we have about it. I'll leave the video that I did about that also below. It's a question mark for me in terms of functionality and what it's actually going to be able to do and what the interface will look like and all these other things, but best watch that video. It's totally separate. And it's an interesting concept. But we all know that once Apple tends to get into things, that's what really gets the competition going, and that makes better products for us. There's also a new version of Google Glass expected with internals from Intel instead of TI to be released next year. And we keep hearing about these murmurings of bringing Google Glass back. It was actually on the top 5 list at the beginning of this year for best wearables, but it dropped off, and it's been pretty quiet lately. But we also always had in the back of our mind that thought of a consumer version of Google Glass for a lower price tag that we just straight up never saw. I mean, Google Glass is still $1,500 right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was resurrected, brought back from the dead in 2015. So we'll see how this list evolves during the course of 2015 and what new stuff comes out. Keep an eye out for CES stuff, keep an eye out for new Google Glass stuff, and also let me know in the comment section below what you're looking forward to in the whole wearable game. Maybe you're not interested in smartwatches at all. Maybe you want stuff to be more on your face, or maybe you want a Moto 360 without the black bar. Whatever it is, let me know what you're thinking in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.